The president-elect is not keeping quiet when it comes to his feelings about the current president's foreign policy moves. Donald Trump is weighing in on Twitter and to reporters, but how his reactions can be turned into policy is still in question. Correspondent Peter Ducey has our report tonight from inside Mar-a-Lago. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Shannon. In the last 1 minute, we got President-elect Donald Trump's response for the first time to President Obama's announcement about a punishment for Russia for alleged Election Day interference. And the statement says this: "It's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things. Nevertheless, in the interest of our country and its great people, I will meet with leaders of the intelligence community next week in order to be updated on the facts of this situation." That is consistent with what the president-elect has been saying about this issue here at Mar-a-Lago, but also up in New York during the transition. And it's also consistent with his repeated attempts to completely turn American foreign policy around 180 degrees.
The Iran nuclear deal, China's currency manipulation, ISIS, all things candidate Donald Trump talked a lot about, but President-elect Donald Trump hasn't been lately. That's because instead of just crafting policies to address these problems, the next president has been doing a lot of reacting to moves the current one has been making, almost always taking the exact opposite position, like with Russia. The Obama White House punished them for allegedly interfering with the American election, but Mr. Trump, no supporter of sanctions, telling reporters last night he wasn't so sure they were involved.
I think we ought to get on with our lives. I think that computers have complicated lives very greatly. The whole age of computer has made it where nobody knows exactly what's going on.
It's the same split on Israel, which didn't get a ton of attention on the trail from Mr. Trump, but has recently been an issue he's used to hammer his predecessor.
I think Israel's been treated very, very unfairly by a lot of different people. You look at resolutions in the United Nations, you take a look at what's happened. They're up for 20 reprimands, and other nations that are horrible places that treat people horribly haven't even been reprimanded.
Transition officials acknowledge there is just one president at a time, and as they wait to see what kind of moves the 44th makes on his way out of office, they are promising quick reversals of many unpopular policies.
I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but I can tell you that on day one alone, there's going to be an unquestionable demarcation for this administration. Change is coming to Washington, D.C., and I think it's not just going to be the first 100 days. It's going to be the first, hour, the first day, the first week, the first month, the first 100 days, the first year, the first term. It's not going to stop.
It was a relatively quiet day here at Mar-a-Lago until we got that response to the Russia announcement. But transition officials tell us to expect a flurry of activity in the next few days as they fill the 4 remaining cabinet-level positions, all of their deputies, and announce who America's next batch of ambassadors are going to be as well. Shannon.
All right, Peter Ducey live in Florida. Thank you.
Well, it was hard to watch Secretary of State John Kerry's combative speech yesterday that was highly critical of Israel. Many lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were outraged by it, including the Senate's incoming Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. In a statement, the senator admonished Kerry for forgetting the history of settlements in Gaza, where Israel had settlers withdraw, and Palestinians responded by sending rockets into Israel. Schumer also said he fears Secretary Kerry has, quote, emboldened extremists on both sides. More now with our special guest tonight, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, professor of strategy and irregular warfare at the Institute of World Politics and author of Defeating Jihad. We're going to welcome Dr. Gorka. Now, Dr. Gorka, you said yesterday the administration will go down as the most anti-Israel U.S. administration since Israel was created. Here's my question, though. Have they been that way all along, or are they just now admitting to it and showing the world how really anti-Israel they are?
Oh, I think from the get-go. I think if you look at the last 8 years, what is the track record of U.S. foreign policy? Really, let's just look at what the legacy is. The legacy is that whoever you are, if you love America, if you want to be our friend, this administration will abandon you and will weaken you. Remember, the people who helped get President Obama elected were sent by this administration to Israel to try and defeat the re-election of Prime Minister Netanyahu. That tells you everything. If you are inimical to U.S. values, if you are a terrorist-sponsoring state like Iran, if you are an individual or a nation, a leader that rejects everything the founding fathers fought for, then you will be mollycoddled, you will be assisted, you will be empowered. That is the Alice in Wonderland world of U.S. foreign policy in the last 8 years. And I don't know about you guys, but I just can't wait for January the 20th, because we're going to do a 180 with this nation. We will treat our friends as friends, and our enemies will be on notice, Eric.
Doctor, we're going to bring it around, Dr. We'll go with Kimberly, but I just want to point out something. When you do what John Kerry and the Obama administration did yesterday, you offer currency. You provide currency to the Palestinians. They're at a negotiating table. They just gave them a whole heck of a lot of political currency. KG.
All right. Hi, Dr. Gorka. So you couldn't agree more with what you said just now and last night. It just really seems that he is going out of his way, President Obama, to undermine our one democratic ally in this region that's already on fire. And to what end do you think that he is doing this? Is it part of the reason to create a problem for President-elect Donald Trump going in on the 20th?
I think they just simply can't help themselves. They can't resist. They're so driven by their partisan ideology. I asked a friend of mine who's a senior State Department official just last night. I said, so, and he was really for this. He said, wow, we really showed him this time. And I said, does it change anything? Is it going to bring us a solution? And he said, no, not at all. Then what are you talking about? Right. Why did you do this? Totally unnecessary. In medicine, there's something called the Hippocratic Oath. And it says, whatever you're going to do as a doctor, your first rule is do no harm. Right. This administration, it's the opposite. Whatever we do, turn over the tables, throw gasoline on the fire, throw the firecrackers into the room. It simply is the opposite of common sense, and it has to be ideological, Kimberly.
You're right. It's operating as an accelerant in the region that is already just, highly compromised. So 3 weeks left, and they seem to still be wanting to create problems. Okay, Dr. Gorka. Richard Fowler asking a question.
Dr. Gorka, so here's my question. At the beginning, you talked about this idea that, the president has sort of made this big enemy of Netanyahu, but it was a couple months ago that President Barack Obama gave the Israelis a $38 billion, the biggest ever aid package in American history. I mean, is that not supporting our allies?
It is, but it's another piece of how schizophrenic this administration is. Remember, this was the administration that was, we're going to lead from behind. That's our bumper sticker. Wars in the Middle East are bad. What did the Obama administration do? In the first 9 months of the Obama administration, the first 9 months, this anti-war president killed more people with drone strikes than President Bush did in 4 years. This is the lack of consistency. It's the dangerous mix of when you add ignorance to arrogance. When you add those two things together, this is what you get.
I hear that, and I think if you were to ask folks in the Obama administration, they would say the reason why, and I'm not saying I agree with drones. I think they're problematic, but the ideal behind drones, we put drones out there so we don't have to, put our men and women in harm's way, and they can operate them effectively outside of that. But either way, I think the main point for me is if you ask any city struggling in America, ask people in Flint for a $38 billion aid package, I'm pretty sure they'd take it.
Wow. Dr. Gorka, it's Katie Pavlich here. I think we should point out that aid packages are passed by Congress, not by the
and
president.
signed by the president.
That's the first thing. But second, my question is, we have a new president who is coming into office now. The Israelis are clearly hoping and I think believe that he will be a better president for Israel than President Obama has been. But my question is on two fronts. How does President Trump mitigate the damage from this UN resolution? And the second question is, how does he navigate what we have now in the Middle East with Syria, with Iraq, with Egypt, with North Africa? I mean, how does he now try and put that fire out? Because as you've said and as Kimberly also said, it is on fire.
And how long have I got, Katie? Maybe 40 seconds to fix the
I know. Sorry.
Okay. So number one, the resolutions of the Security Council are raised to the level of international law, so there's nothing we can do about that unilaterally. However, as the highest donor to the United Nations, as the most important, powerful nation in the world, we have a lot of leverage. The people who supported this, the 10 nations that supported this, will be punished, whether it's economically, whether it's diplomatically, or whether it's just rhetorically. They will be frozen out, at least for a period of time. That's clear from just the statements made already by President-elect Trump. What can we do in the Middle East? In the Middle East, the first thing that has to be done, and I've been stating this again and again and again, I've told General Flynn, other people on the transition team, look, the first thing we we have to do is we have to win back our friends. There are people bleeding right now, Muslims bleeding for us and for our values in the Middle East. Remember that Jordanian fighter pilot burnt alive by ISIS. The nations of the Middle East that should be our friends, like Jordan, like Egypt, have been completely neglected and abandoned sometimes, like Egypt, by this administration. The first thing that the new commander-in-chief has to do is to build back those relationships, because they have to trust us if we are going to stabilize the Middle East, and that's what I expect Donald Trump to do.
Okay, Tom Shalhoub.
Dr. Gorka, Tom Shalhoub, I want to know why now? Why do you think the administration is changing now? If they really meant it, why didn't they approach Israel in this way earlier in their administration? Is it because it's just a parting shot and he doesn't mean it?
I can't talk for them. I think the best answer is I think you have it. I think it's sheer bloody-mindedness. They're doing it because they can do it. And they want to send a message to all those people who are with them, who think that Israel is the evil force in the Middle East, and despite being surrounded by millions and millions of people who wish to do it harm, that somehow they are the dark force of the region. It's really, for somebody that lives in the real world, that understands who our true friends are, I have no explanation for you. Please, knock on the door of the White House.
Dr. Gregg, before we let you go, so the thought is, what was the intent of this? Was this to settle the score with Netanyahu, basically at the expense of the Israeli people, or was it to further complicate Donald Trump's foreign policy as he takes the office, takes the House January 20th?
Great question, Eric. Look, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I find them immensely entertaining, but they're called theories for a reason, because they're not facts. And having watched the last 8 years, I don't see Machiavellian strategists in the White House. I see a person with an MA in fictional writing called Ben Rhodes as the Deputy National Security Advisor. These guys aren't Kissingers. These guys aren't big brains. They don't have a master plan. It is sheer, willful, bloody-mindedness and done out of spite. If I had to put money on it, Eric, it was done in a fit of pique to say, we can do this and we're going to do it to you. Happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah.
Kill two birds with one stone, I guess, also, Doctor. We're going to have to leave it there.
Ignorance and arrogance, like you said.
Yep.